Alexstrasza. I'm going to give you the disclaimer about Alexstrasza. On my stream, I've talked about this often. Where is she good? Where is she not good? That's the most important part about Alexstrasza, is that she only has one build that really gives her a lot of sustain healing, which is consistent healing. But overall, a lot of it is based around her Dragon Queen. Her Dragon Queen is really OP. It's used for winning a lot of big fights, which is one of the reasons why she's so good on Infernal Shrines. Win that fight, win the objective. It's really simple to put together. When you put that into context, something like Cursed Hollow, Garden of Terror, you might have that every other objective to be able to use. And can the other team walk away or can they not? So then it's not as valuable for every fight. A map like Volskaya, probably a much longer fight and much more difficult. Battlefield of Eternity, much longer fights. So for those reasons, Alexstrasza tends to be more impactful on maps to where you're going to have more big, deciding team fights. Not the fight that you walk away, come back, fight again a minute later. And we're talking about 150-second cooldown. If this was a 120-second cooldown, she'd probably be busted, just so you know. So let's talk about Alexstrasza, because it's really based around that. But there is a build that kind of gives you a lot of sustain. Not exactly the most exciting play style, but it does mean you're a much better healer. You have much better healing throughput. You can be more active in a lot of these situations, and it helps a lot. A couple things that we need to note: your Q and your W. You want to try and use those right before you use your Dragon Queen, since your Q is free in Dragon Queen, and you instantly get a W the minute you go in there. You do have to make sure you don't get interrupted in this, because it can be interrupted. So a couple things to note, right? Your Gift of Life heals you for 15%. You sacrifice 15% of your current health, healing an ally for 150% of that amount. The lower health you have, the less healing you have. Okay? That's the one thing you have to know. So it's imperative that you keep high health. Your E, this is one way to make sure that you run out of mana really quickly. You're going to hit them. Try not to use this unless it's to like follow up CC. It's very tempting to use this. You can set up certain kills with this. You can follow up CC with this to make sure those people that you're hitting. It's a 2-second cooldown, so it's pretty easy to use. You do bonus damage to targets you already hit, but you will run out of mana until level 7, which you've got to be careful. This is a 2-second cooldown, which means it's very short cooldown. But it's also one of the highest cost per time ratios in the game. 50 mana for a 2-second cooldown. That's normally like a 7 or 8-second cooldown mana cost, or maybe even a 10-second cooldown. Keep that in mind, that if you spam your E a bunch, you're going to run out of mana and life's going to suck. So let's talk about the build and what makes Alexstrasza good, because it's really all about synergy. It's all about synergy with Alexstrasza. E-build, save that for ARAMs. It's actually really fun in ARAMs, really bad everywhere else. If people are running this into your games, they're basically trolling you. It's like playing damage on it, just not good. Circle of Life is a distant B tier. A lot of it's going to come around your Q build. Going back to the principle of, I need to make sure I have high health basically all the time. We'll talk about that between the 1, 4, and 7 talents, because that's pretty much how it goes. While Alexstrasza is at 75% health, Gift of Life's cooldown recharges 100% faster, which means a lot more sustain in an environment to where your cooldowns are pretty long as a healer, 7 and 14 seconds. This is a big heal. That is a 14-second cooldown. It's really rough, but it's also really good because it heals for 20% of their maximum health, meaning it's really good for characters like Diablo. Now, there is a world and there is a place where playing with a Diablo with Devil's Due, or a map where there's a lot of globes, where Circle of Life might be good. Do not pick Alexstrasza into an Ana. Ana hard counters Alex. She throws a grenade on your big green circle, and your big green circle heals nothing. Keep that in mind. Don't pick an Alexstrasza after an Ana. A lot of it's going to come down to getting a lot of cooldown reduction and a lot of Q value, and it's going to come by this talent here. So while you're above 75% health, you're going to recharge 100% faster, which means that 7-second cooldown, much faster, only a few seconds after that. So it's all about having that high health and Q. Now, how do you keep high health? Because if I give up 15% of my health and I'm at 100% health, I'm at 85% health, and then I use it again, I'm at 70% health. How do I keep my health up? What are you talking about? It kind of sucks until level 7. Your W is one way to get some of that back, but it's going to be there. Also, your W placement, before we get too far, your W placement doesn't always have to be in the middle of the fight, doesn't always have to be way out of the fight. If you put it right there and the enemy team can engage right on you, you're basically putting a giant target for your team. Always be careful with your W placement. I don't think that has to go into. You just should be very careful if you're playing Alexstrasza for the first time. It's better to put it on the safe side as opposed to the enemy side or right in between. Level 4. Now, a lot of this comes in. While above 75% health, gain 15% movement speed, meaning that you're much more able to dodge skill shots. It pairs very well with staying above 75% health with your level 1. And it means that you can avoid taking damage. That's where a lot of people come in. They're like, look, man, like this level 1 talent says I do more healing if I stay above 75% health, but I press Q twice and I'm below 75% health. Thoughts? And it's normally like 3 or 4 because of, regen and then your W going down. So a lot of that comes into play with Exuberance being the one to dodge skill shots and while you're staying above 75% health. You're going against heavy dive teams, this might not be as good, and you might consider going W into W. But for all intents and purposes, learning Alexstrasza is learning about how to be sustainable. Now, there is a lot of consideration towards a W build, into a full W build, into a full W build. This comes at the way of learning Alexstrasza, understanding where your counters lie, and when to use this. I don't think it's a terrible build, but if you're playing Alexstrasza in general games by yourself, solo queue, it's much better to go out there and go queue build and be able to stay moving and active and not being taken advantage of by just putting a W down and hoping that that's going to be enough healing. If you play Alexstrasza with the sole purpose of, look, when I have Dragon, we win. Dragon's 2.5 minute cooldown. So if you don't have Dragon, like it's really bad and it's not very fun. And you're going to find out that there's a reason why this build is the preferred build by most Alexstrasza players, with some variants coming in some other areas. So having high speed. Now here's where you actually get sustain and the game becomes infinitely easier for you to play Alexstrasza. Life Blossom. Hey guys, remember that 75% health thing? While Alexstrasza is above 75% health, Gift of Life creates a Life Blossom at the target's location. Alexstrasza can go collect that flower to make her next Gift of Life cost no health. So all of that thing about giving up 15% of your health, now out the window, which means that you can stay above 75% health. You get more value out of your Q since it's healing for 150% of the amount that it should be taking, right? Or of your health that's up there. So now you're healing more with your Q. You're not losing health and you get it for free. Conveniently enough, you also have 100% cooldown reduction on this, which means that now I'm pressing Q a lot very quickly. I run up there, I grab a flower while I have 15% bonus movement speed, and then I can keep pressing Q on everybody. So I have basically a 3.5 second Q that's healing for a pretty substantial amount, and I'm doing it for free, and I'm moving fast all while doing it. So your 1, 4, and 7 is how you have sustain as Alexstrasza. Everything after this is more about play style with your Dragon and then some of your later talents to be able to emphasize those things. So getting Life Blossom is imperative to making all this work. You could potentially go away from Exuberance. You can see the natural synergies to be able to have the movement speed so you can go up there, get the Life Blossom if it's on a tank, or go over there if it's on somebody near you, grab that. You're not too far out of the fight. You get right back. You're dodging skill shots, keeping your health up, things like that. So a lot of that comes in your 1, 4, and 7 synergies to get that Q. Could go into W build. If you do going in, getting the regen globes, make sure it's not on something like Cursed Hollow where you're never going to get regen globes. That's really bad. Even on maps where you know you're going to get regen globes, it doesn't necessarily make it good. You also have to keep in mind who's on the other side. In terms of like, look, they didn't go Q builds. So they don't have fast heals. So they just have big W heals. Let's just boom, explode on that. Most people have skill shots that kind of counter it as well. Thus making your positioning very hard. Raises the skill cap for very little, if any, reward. So your Q build is where a lot of this comes in. Now level 10, Life Binder for a while was really good. Then it wasn't good. Then it's kind of balanced out and average now. I do still really like Cleansing Flame. Cleansing Flame is a big heroic in terms of keeping people alive, doing AoE damage, AoE heals. If you're an Alexstrasza that's using this for the sole purpose of damage and your team's dying while you're doing damage, it's like, well, I got to kill. Did you see that? I did 135 damage like 3 times and I got a kill. My teammates died. One of them died. My ranged assassin died. But I got a kill. That's terrible. That's a terrible trade. Your damage dealer can go and do that 135 damage with like 1 auto attack, okay? Like, keep your damage dealers alive. If you need to confirm a kill, yeah, go for it. Make sure that you keep an eye on both offense and defense there, because if you're neglecting one and forgetting the other, you might miss a kill and then heal somebody to 100%. You might get a kill and then watch somebody die. Try and find that balance on knowing when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive. It's better to be on the cautious side as opposed to the aggressive side. Your teammates are going to do more damage than you ever could there, and there's a lot that goes into it. You do land at the end of this. The circle changes so you know where to land and you can reposition yourself. Now, here's something that's very important to know about your dragon ability. So when you transform, you go into dragon mode. Remember, use your Q and your W, all that stuff before. Ideally, you definitely want to make sure and use your W. If they're like 3 seconds away, it might not be a reason to wait on your dragon. It just kind of depends on the situation. You got to learn to read the situation. So your dragon, okay, while Dragon Queen is active, Alexstrasza's abilities are empowered, and your basic attacks deal damage and heal allied heroes in an arc in front of her. So for that reason, auto-attacking somebody while your heroes are between them and auto-attacking them is also healing. It's a very missed concept of how that goes. It's not a huge heal, but it can be the difference between keeping somebody alive and not alive. Additionally, the duration of incoming stuns, roots, and slows is reduced by 50%, meaning that you get in there, you're fine. Now, something very important to note when you do this. If I use Cleansing Flames and I'm not in dragon form, it's going to take a few seconds and then I'll go into the air. One thing that's very, very missed by a lot of people that are just playing Alexstrasza is if I'm in dragon form, I actually go into the air basically instantly. I can be interrupted. There's a very small window. So instead of taking that extra second or two to like charge up and go into Cleansing Flames, if I'm in dragon form, I now basically almost instantly go into the air, taking away the charge time. So that's why a lot of fights are won post level 10 when dragon is out. I get the dragon out. I used all my abilities before. I'm using my abilities during. And then when I'm either in, maybe I'm 5 seconds into the dragon time doesn't wear off while I'm in the air. It actually leaves off where it was when I come back down. But there's another time, right? So I'm in the middle of a fight. I'm half my duration in, and I need big heals. I need big AoE heals. I instantly fly up into the air. I start dropping AoE heals. It's not enough to get my Q and my W. You can get a good QW rotation out, go into the air, drop bombs, come back down, have a good QW rotation. Or I can stay down there, QW a bunch, get the full duration, fight's still going. And maybe my team, if it's 15 seconds of the fight's still going, my team might still need more healing. I can use that Cleansing Flame, go up as the duration is wearing off and my dragon's still out. I'm basically going to fly up into the air as that duration is expiring. And that way I don't have to worry about the charge up time and the potential interrupt on my Cleansing Flame, and I can start healing again. And that way I have a just extended period of time. So we're talking about 21 seconds at this point between your dragon and the 6 seconds you're up there. So around 20 seconds, right? So I can QW, get my dragon out, use all the abilities that I have, the knockback, the auto attack heals, the free Q. Always use your Q, it's free. Your W that goes out, I can Cleansing Flames to get up into the air instantly and come down. If I'm not in dragon form, make sure you're in a safe spot to use Cleansing Flames because it does take a second for it to charge up. So that's something you should always note. If you go Cleansing Flames and you can use it during dragon, or it's necessary during dragon, it's better to use that instead of waiting for dragon to wear off and then try and do it again, since you can basically fly up instantly. So very important to note, when you are playing that and you're in dragon form, utilize the dragon's mechanics as best you can. Level 13. Now there's a lot that's good here. I think all of these are really good, but the number one that you're going to look at more often than not is Life Unbound. Activate to heal an ally for 15% of their maximum health and deal 200 damage to nearby enemies. This is really good. Healing a stunned, rooted, or silenced ally reduces Life Unbound's cooldown for 30 seconds, which means you have to be marginally more aware of who you're healing and when you're healing them. Since you did go Q build and you did go Life Blossom, this is pretty easy to see, like, oh, my tank got stunned by an ETC slide or a Muradin Hammer or a Johanna Condemn. I can just Q that target. Boom. Like, I get 30 seconds off this. I can now heal them for 15% of their health. Works better on tanks, of course, but this means that the people that are more likely to take the CC are going to get more priority healing in general. And so now I can work around that. This does require you to read the situation a lot more, But even then, a 90-second cooldown kind of sucks, right? But 15% heal in the right moment and an AoE damage is really good. Now, the other talents aren't that bad. If there's not a lot of CC and my tanks are going to be able to live for a long time and my ranged isn't being targeted as much, Pacify can also be really good. Activate to slow and reduce an enemy hero's damage by 50% for 3 seconds. Healing a stunned, rooted, or silenced ally reduces Pacify's cooldown by 30 seconds. This can be good against Illidan comps, heavy dive comps, maybe not so much versus the Samura if he just, switches targets. But you can use Pacify. Tracer that comes in, you get the slow, you get the damage reduction. This can help against certain compositions. Alarak, Kerrigan, somebody coming in, maybe that heal's not enough, but reducing the damage of said person by 50% can really help. The other one, Dragon Scales, gain 50 armor while stunned, rooted, or silenced, and this is in 2 seconds after. This is if you're versus a heavy dive team. You're the priority target. Your teammates are finding different ways to survive, and you're just getting smashed. This is kind of okay. This isn't bad. All of these are situationally good. All of these talents can be good in the right situation. The most general talent that you're going to look at is Life Unbound. Pacify if you really don't like trying to look to heal certain targets. I would say that this is similar to learning to use Cleanse. This is much easier because you can almost accidentally do it at times. But getting that big 15% heal in a moment of need and doing a little bit of damage around there can be the difference between somebody staying alive and not staying alive. Getting cooldown reduction on this so that you can continue to pump out some big heals. This is a burst heal, something that you have from your Q to a degree. Your W is your big one because that's 20%, but this is another one that gives you another 15%. It means that you can keep somebody alive in a situation where you normally couldn't. Level 16, I actually don't even know what 2 of the 3 talents here do. I don't, because they never get picked. Draconic Discipline. Increase Dragon Queen's duration by 7 seconds. This thing is OP. Your dragon is a game changer. It is the difference between winning and losing a fight every time it's out. And if I can have dragon for an extra 7 seconds, 15 seconds plus 7, plus the potential 6 seconds I have in the air, not counting the level 20 we're about to get into, we're talking about almost 30 seconds of just raw, dragon, cleansing flames healing. 25 plus seconds of healing from a dragon in a fight is just a substantial amount of healing, a lot of playmaking, knockbacks, all the different things that come with it. Abundance granting a shield, not that great. While above, getting Gift of Life grants its targets 25 armor for 2.5 seconds. Hey man, you're telling me that Q build's really good, and this plays into Q build while above 75% life. That was the whole thing you told me from 1, 4, and 7. Why would I not go out here at 16? It's not terrible. It's not terrible. But we need to put into context the way these fights go. You already have sustain healing. You're already putting out a bunch of heals. But a lot of your fights post 16, when you think about death timers post 16, you start to reach the 45 seconds to 1 minute mark once you start to get around level 20. And so winning big fights is better than winning the long duration fights of the 25 armor. It's actually a pretty good talent. These are actually pretty decent talents. But having an extra 7 seconds on a dragon versus 25 armor, I'm taking the dragon all day, every day. I don't know if I've ever really seen anybody pick any of the other talents in any game I've ever watched. At least any high-level games that I've watched. Draconic Discipline, just so good. It means another rotation from your abilities, which you didn't have before. I think you get an extra W. I can't remember the full timing on this, but it changes the way that you can really get into a fight, right? So keep that in mind when you're playing this. Draconic Discipline, pretty OP. Level 20. Now, there's a couple of different things to go here. For the sake of this video, assuming that you're learning Alexstrasza, we're going to talk about basically one. Now, there is something to be said about Ancient Flame while Dragon Queen is active. Alexstrasza's basic attacks apply Flame Buffet, and there is something to be said about a Mimi build. We're not going to go into those. You can discover that sometime down the road. Healing or damaging heroes 8 or more times with Cleansing Flame activates Dragon Queen for 15 seconds upon landing. So if I'm lucky, I can go out, I can dragon, I get on my QW, I dragon, I go out there, I get the full 20-second duration, and my Cleansing Flame isn't needed in those 20 seconds. Boom, I pop Cleansing Flame and the fight is still going. So now I've had Draconic Discipline on to everything going there. So now I have the full 22 seconds. So let's say 21 seconds I go into the air. I now have 6 seconds in the air where I'm doing a lot of healing. This is pretty easy to proc. This is incredibly easy to proc. I can do damage or I can heal. So now I come back down. That's 21 seconds, 22 seconds, plus 6 seconds in the air. So we're approaching 30 seconds. Boom, I've got another 15 seconds. I got a dragon and I'm in the air for like 40 seconds. What are you going to do? I have some of the most insane healing output post level 20. Now, you can be interrupted. You can maybe not even go into the air because you get interrupted and life becomes miserable because you're like, I couldn't press my buttons. I got interrupted. And that's why casting it from Dragon means that it minimizes the risk of being interrupted, making things a lot easier and a lot safer. So for Alexstrasza, post level 20, your Dragon fights. If you win a fight post level 20, it's because the Dragon is out, and fighting into a Dragon is really hard. And if you can win that fight with Dragon, things look really good. Now, another trick is that, hey, look, my Dragon's down. I had to use it in the last fight. We were at level 18 or 19. It's been 2 minutes, and I have another 30 seconds before Dragon's up. I can use on Ruby Wings early. I can go up into the air, and it's like, well, I don't have Dragon. How can I get Dragon? This works just by getting Dragon. So I don't have to cast this from Dragon form. I can cast this from human form, go up into the air, come down, have 15 seconds. Of Dragon in that situation. So it's a way to get a free Dragon post level 20 in case my Dragon's not up. I would recommend using this probably early in a fight so that you get that Dragon, so that you get the 6 seconds, then the 15, and then you can work on everything after that. So there is something to be said about getting this in case the cooldown's not available, and there's a lot of things to go into. So for that, the way to play Alexstrasza from a very general perspective is to go Q at 1, movement speed here, since the 75% health buff is what you're playing around, and Q at level 7, meaning that I've got movement speed, I have higher healing output. Pre-level 7, look, you're going to have to just deal with it, right? You can use Dragon at the 4-minute mark, 3-minute mark for your objective, and you're going to be fine. And then post-level 7, Life Blossom, I Q, I pick up the Blossom, I Q again, I pick up the Blossom. I have healing output for days. Unless it's a hard dive team, I'm generally okay. Level 10, Cleansing Flames. Lifebinder is not okay in certain situations. I actually don't mind this. It really kind of depends on what it is. The healing throughput on this, the healing is actually pretty insane. And post-level 20 upgrade is actually really insane. So if you do go Lifebinder, that level 20 upgrade is really nice. But Cleansing Flame, I think for most people is good. Life Unbound you should learn to use, but also understand when the other two might be better than Life Unbound. Level 16, Draconic Discipline, so that I can sustain for a long time. Boom, big fights, I'm ready to go. And then at level 20 on Ruby Wings, getting the extra activation of my Dragon Queen, whether it's through me using Dragon Queen, then on Ruby Wings, coming back down for another Dragon, or whether it's I don't have Dragon, I go up into the air, and now I have Dragon just by healing. Sometimes the AoE heals is not as much as your throughput that you would have, but most of the time it's enough to keep people alive. Single target damage versus AoE damage, you're getting single target heals, but it might be slightly different. Just make sure that normally before you pop your Dragon, or normally before you go into the air, use your buttons, then go and use the big stuff, and then come back down, and then use all the other stuff along in conjunction with it. So Alexstrasza very much can be played on a more general basis. I think most of the time, putting a big green circle down is like putting a giant target on the ground for people to come and kill you. It's, if you pick this before Alexstrasza's banned, or excuse me, before Anna's banned, or after Anna's picked, you did it to yourself, okay? If the enemy team already picked a Rhaegar or whatever else, fine, pick Alexstrasza. But if the enemy team doesn't have a healer and they haven't picked Anna, or you didn't ban Anna, you picked it after Anna, nobody can blame you. Nobody can blame you except for yourself at that point. You can't blame anybody but yourself at that point. So always keep that in mind. Q, 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 W in safe spots or aggressive spots depending on your team. Dragon out for big fights. Make sure it doesn't get interrupted. Cleansing Flames can take you into the air almost instantly. If you're in Dragon form, not out of Dragon form, there's a wind-up time. And then, of course, your big 16 and 20 abilities will give you plenty of Dragon time. But with that being said, with Alexstrasza, it's all about mostly the maps that you play on. Think about the objective. It's like playing an Uther on Volskaya. Unless my team has early control on that, I might not win the fight. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have dragon and I'm trying to stay alive for a very long period of time. In theory, that can work. In execution, it can be much more difficult. On big explosive maps like Infernal, or where the objective isn't going to last for like 2 minutes, let's go. Alexstrasza is where it's at. So don't try and force it. Alexstrasza might not be an every game healer, but she's not far off. You just got to play her the right way. And that's Alexstrasza.